Good afternoon, folks. We are live once again. Let me get everything switched over to the right layout, and we will jump right into a year in reflection 2024. It'll hang out right there. And we'll put on the BGM playlist. I'll leave the volume there for now. How's everybody doing? I did see that Red Dragon has resubbed for 15 months. Thanks, Red Dragon. Much appreciated. That is over a year. As always, thanks for your support. And Happy New Year. Okay, so we're going to do this pretty much exactly the way we did last year. What I've done is I've put together a sort of slideshow of images going over content that we did in the last year, both as far as streams and projects. So let me actually turn it on, and then what I'll do is I'll kind of talk about all the stuff as we go through, just kind of reflect on what we did. 2024 was a big year. It seems like it flew by, but we did do a lot. Where is it? So let me turn the source on. Here. And I should be able to just tab through the images. And so to start off the year, when things kicked off in 2024, let me model a little bigger. There's going to be some stuff on here that was a holdover from last year. A handful of games that we were streaming actively here, and we finished after a few sessions in early 24. So you're going to see some repeats from the end of last year. And the first one is Pokemon Infinite Fusion. I want to say that playthrough was the majority of last year in 2020, the year before in 2023 rather, but we did finish up the official Kanto run of Infinite Fusion, which went, I think, to maybe February or so. But that was a good time. I do want to get back to that game at some point so we can do the Johto continent, and I'm sure a lot of stuff has been added to the game since I stopped. And we talked about starting with a brand new party with a different typing requirement. I think we said dragon. And so that's something I'd like to get back to eventually. I just don't know if it's going to be later this year, but I still have all my stuff for it. And I would like to get back to making sprites for the game too. In fact, there's some that I finished that I never submitted, so maybe I should work on that at some point as well. But Infinite Fusion was fun. I know Red Dragon, you said you tinkered around with it a bit, but I've recommended that game to anyone who has even a passing interest in Pokemon or Pokemon adjacent things. A very fresh experience. All right. Next, another game that we streamed quite a bit in 2023, crossing over into early 2024, was Dyson Sphere Program. This was the first factory automation sim game I streamed here on the channel, I believe. Not the first one I've played, but the first one I streamed for content here. And I should check and see when they're slated to leave early access. I haven't been back to Dyson Sphere program in a while, but we stopped on stream once we reached the final research tier and unlocked all the stuff at the end of the game. There's still a lot more kind of to do and optimize and play around with, but we finished the main objective, and that's when we stopped. But this sort of opened up the path for factory and automation sim games here, which I didn't think people would really enjoy me streaming because they're technical and they're not the most exciting, but they're really fascinating to play. But as we'll see later on in the slideshow when we get to Satisfactory, I think that's going to be something that we revisit every once in a while here. I do want to play Factorio on stream, kind of the game that got me into the genre and is really known for kind of establishing and launching factory and automation sims. They've always existed, but the one that really kind of got big several years ago was Factorio. It's kind of like the grandfather of a lot of the more modern games like DSP or Satisfactory. And so that's on the docket for upcoming streams at some point. Factorio received a pretty big kind of DLC expansion about a month ago, and it dramatically added more content to the game. I think those who were part of the raid when I raided Blue most recently, he was playing Factorio and kind of walking through like all these different planets and stuff. All that content, interplanetary building and colonizing stuff, is brand new. And so yeah, we'll definitely be looking at that. And depending on what happens with Dyson Sphere program in the future, since it's going to be hitting 1.0, I thought I read in 2025. I may bring that one back and revisit it. I don't know if I'll do a completely from the scratch playthrough, since I'm pretty sure the one we did was like 100 something hours. But I really enjoyed that game. Well, we'll see what happens in the future. Alright, next up, we have the first music release of 2024. And this one came out in, I want to say, around February-ish. Things are in order of release, but not necessarily the order of when they occurred, especially with the music projects. As we get later on in the year, it'll more or less kind of fall in line with the month. But the first music release of 2024 was Titanium Forest. This was the higher energy electronic dance adjacent BGM pack. And this one was a lot of fun to work on because this was the second of that style that I've done. And I think a lot of the things I learned in refining sounds that carried through from Far Future Days, which was the previous year, made the tracks at least more polished, in my opinion. And the art was in collaboration with one of my fellow VTubers, Mycelia Corpus, who drew the cover art. And as we'll see moving further on into the year with the music releases, it seems like I average 4 releases a year, give or take. There's usually one at the kind of beginning of the year. There's one in the spring, one in the summer, and one in the fall. I don't know if I'm going to keep that same release cadence. I would rather plan my releases around when I have projects ready to go, as opposed to having to put something out just for the sake of putting something out. When we get to the end of the stream and I kind of talk about what I want to do in 2025, I'll kind of break down my strategy and what I foresee. The releases aren't really going to stop, but I want to do something a little bit different with what I'm working on this year. So we'll get to that at the very end of the stream when we talk about plans for the future. All right. Next up, another holdover from the previous year. We finished making our way through Blasphemous, and we beat this one. For a lot of the linear type games that we play here, for the most part, I wouldn't say every single example, we'll see later, but I will usually complete games that I start. I know I haven't beaten Hades. We'll get to that one in a bit, but Blasphemous was fun. Pretty challenging game, but the overall presentation and art style and everything is pretty noteworthy. I do need to check out the second one. I heard the second one was still pretty good. We'll see in the future, since we're already playing a Castlevania type game. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed my time at Blasphemous. It's a cool title. Okay. Next up, in order of release, we had probably the biggest music project for the year. We had Songs of the Spiral. This was the sequel to the RPG BGM project, The Lost Kingdom, which was back in 2023. And this one was a pretty large undertaking, both from the music creation standpoint and also the collaboration standpoint. SOTS was one of the biggest things I've attempted to kind of put together, but I think the results turned out pretty well. The tracks were a lot of fun to write and kind of put together, building off the ideas from the year before's RPG project. Again, it was meant to be a continuation, and kind of developing the story of where we wanted the narrative to go, since we took the same characters from the first one, and rather than just putting them in random scenes and kind of making the tracks fit and the animation fit, we wanted to have more of a kind of structured narrative of what was going on. And so I collaborated with Wazi, and she did the animation and also helped map out the story. Pwops designed the characters. They did the initial character concepts, kind of updating everybody's look and outfit from the first one and adding some new characters. And then Captain Ahaf did the cover art. So this was a 4-person collaboration project across all the different assets and things we did, which was a lot to kind of manage at different timelines, but it was fun to kind of pick multiple brains when it came to the direction of the project and what we were going to kind of plan from start to finish with the different characters, kind of story beats we wanted, and how the animation itself was going to be developed and shape each of the scenes. Since again, for the previous title, Lost Kingdom, it was a scene and the characters were kind of there and they'd move around a bit and there was a couple battle scenes. But for SOTS, Wazi wanted to go much bigger for this one as far as the animation complexity. And I thought it was a really cool challenge. And when we sat down to map out each individual scene, we said, okay, what's going to be the point and story beat of what's going on in the song, and then how's it going to be reflected in what's being shown on screen. And that resulted in things being a lot more dynamic. You have really busy scenes where a lot's happening when action and camera perspectives and changing, and others are a bit more calm, that establishes a scene with less going on, and it felt like a more kind of cohesive story from start to finish. And then adding in all of the art designs and everything from Cap and Pwops helped bring it together. And so I feel like it turned out really well. It's weird, I think I mentioned on stream recently, for some reason the Spotify streaming statistics stop at Titanium Forest, at least last I checked. Maybe they've updated in the last day or so, but I can't see stats on anything that I've released since Titanium Forest, which means this one and any album after that, I can't see, like, in the overall wrap-ups how many times it's been streamed. But either way, I'm glad we did the project. I don't think I'm gonna do a another one like that this year. I do want to put together like another RPG styled collection, but it won't be a continuation of the same story, and it's not going to be probably a full blown animated thing. I don't know when. It might not be this calendar year because there's some other things I want to do, but the idea of doing kind of character based and story narrative based things and then trying to make the music kind of connect everything was fun. So I definitely want to do more with that. I just don't really know what I'm going to do next. It'll be something different. It'll be like different characters, different setting. Might not be as complex. Doing 20 tracks and animations for all of them is not an easy undertaking, but it was definitely worth the investment. So future releases, there'll be another RPG project, but I've yet to figure out what I'm going to do with it. But shouts to everybody who helped bring this project to life. It was a lot of work, but I think it all paid off in the end. All right, now we have a fairly significant start of content that's become a mainstay here on the channel. And Red Dragon, if you're still here, this one goes out to you as well. I started streaming Elden Ring in early mid 2024-ish, before the spring maybe. But I had already played about half of Elden Ring just solo, maybe a year before plus, just on my own time, and kind of stopped close to the middle-ish. I decided I wanted to actually play through the game properly, and talking with Red Dragon, we looked at the seamless co-op mod because it had been out for a bit and people have been using it. And what we did was we started streaming it every other Saturday, and we've been doing that through the year and on into 2025. One sec. And Elden Ring's been fun. I know Red Dragon joked when we were talking recently about how, because we don't stream it frequently, it's taking a long time for us to get through. But especially in the last several months when the DLC hit, I think that was kind of what really spurred us to do that ongoing collab. The Shadow of Erdtree was coming out, and I said I really would like to get back to Elden Ring at some point. And so we got through the early part of the base game, and then we've been working through the DLC over the last couple months. We are currently on the final boss of the DLC right now. It's where we stopped in the last session. I'm pretty sure our next one is going to be just like 3 hours of that, trying to beat that fight. But even though it's challenging, it's been a cool experience to go through the game and also do it cooperatively. So anyone who's interested in Elden Ring and knows other people on PC, for example, that play it, I highly recommend setting up the seamless mod and getting a group together. It's a very different experience than playing it solo. And we'll see how long it takes to complete the content in Elden Ring. Once we finish the DLC, we're going to go back and finish all of the content in the main game. And we'll just keep playing through that as long as we need to. I think we're in the last 20 to 30% of the main game. But I told Red Dragon, and you know, we'll see what he says when we get done the DLC. I wanted to do all of the major fights. Maybe not every single one in the game, but I wanted to see like every area, fight all the bosses and whatnot. So we'll see how much more content there is, but we'll also see how difficult it is compared to the DLC, since we'll be going back at a pretty high level. So Elden Ring will continue, and we'll just see how long it takes. The upcoming Battle Royale game, I don't know if I'm going to look at on stream. I'm kind of curious when it comes out, what it's like and what people say. But base Elden Ring still got quite a bit to do. More pain, more failure, more convoluted lore. All right. Next up, this game ended up being kind of an extended quick look series of streams. I finally checked out Hades for the first time, and people have been yelling at me to check out Hades for a while. Just never got around to it, but we did play through it on stream. I think I got maybe about 2/3 of the way through the main story. But Hades is fun. It definitely met the high praise that I've heard from everybody I know who's played it. It's a very beautifully presented game. Mechanics are fun. The core gameplay loop is fun. And I definitely need to get back and beat this one so I can play the second one. Kind of does scratch that kind of grinding roguelike itch. And like I said, the art and music is also very good. Overall, I can't think of anything I didn't like about the game. It can be a bit of a grind, which doesn't really bother me, but the reason why I stopped is because I felt like I was doing kind of a lot of the grinding in each of the sessions, and it wasn't resulting in a lot of progress. Therefore, I didn't think people were really that interested in seeing kind of the same thing over and over again. But I would still highly recommend it to anybody who likes that style of game. All right, let us move on. I think we are in the spring-ish. And I don't have these dates stamped. They're just in order, roughly, of when I played or streamed the different games. But we started up a playthrough that's still ongoing, kind of like Elden Ring, of Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, which is essentially an expanded version of the original SMT5. That's the way it's promoted. It's a completely separate title. You don't buy it like DLC. The thing that's interesting about this one, having played the original SMT5 on Switch, I was kind of assuming this would be similar to the way they did the Nocturne Maniacs version way back when we got it on PS2. The base version of Nocturne was released in Japan, but the version the West got was what they called the Maniacs version, which was an expanded version that had more content, more dungeons, and some slightly different things in it. But at least from what I saw in playing the remaster briefly on stream when I first started VTubing, the story wasn't dramatically different in the base version. I mistakenly started on the vanilla version, and the reason why I stopped is because I got like 60 hours or 50 hours in on the wrong version, and I knew I was going to miss all the really cool content that was in the version I originally played, and I didn't want to start over. And so we just kind of abandoned the game. But I kind of figured SMT5 Vengeance would be like that, with maybe some new demons or a new ending or something like that. But it turns out the game is almost a completely different experience. Because they add a different faction, that main antagonistic faction in Vengeance, without getting into spoilers for people who haven't played it, the story progression and everything feels like a different game. It's the same setting, a lot of the same characters from the base version, but the order of things and the way they play out in the different zones seem very different. And it hasn't been that long since I played the base version, but very little just carried over one-to-one in Vengeance. It feels very different. It's a different experience. A lot of quality of life improvements and things they add in the game make that experience better. But I think I say it several times, every time I stream SMT5, I say this wasn't in the base game because none of the story stuff is in there. A lot of the zones I think are kind of repurposed and it's following a similar arc, but it's a very fresh experience, which I wasn't really expecting. Expecting it to be mostly familiar, and instead it's been very new. I would say if you're interested in playing through SMT5, I don't even know if you can get the base version on its own. Just buy Vengeance because you can choose whether you play that version or the original base vanilla version. If you want to see the way everything played out in that, you can. And you just get a choice. And so I think SMT5 Vengeance is a really cool product. I don't normally have an issue with buying a game more than once, especially if it's on different systems. But with that one, I feel like I bought a different game. The experience is different, and it feels fresh, even though it's still based off of the original SMT5. I think we're streaming that one this Sunday. I think we're probably in the last quarter of the game. Hard to say because everything is so different. I don't know where we are in the story, but it's been a good time. A good time talking about mythology and lore and stuff like that. So we'll keep going with SMT5 and see how it ends. Hopefully I'm gonna get the neutral ending. I may have to do some research before we get to the very, very end, but it's kind of the plan for now. All right. Next up, another game we streamed in 2024 across several sessions was No Man's Sky. And I think I mentioned this when we started up a playthrough of this one. I have restarted this game at least 4 times since it's been out. I've been playing it since release, but because constant updates and things keep getting added and they keep changing the game for the better, I have started a brand new save, I think at least 3 or 4 times. And so we started a fresh one, and we jumped into this game that's been around for a while, and went through kind of the newer content, explaining the whole gameplay loop and everything else. And that was a pretty fun time. I need to get back and finish some of the expeditions. I didn't finish the Halloween one, which I'm really kicking myself for because there was a really cool reward for it. But we may revisit No Man's Sky in the future. It'll be the same save. I won't start over. But there's a lot to do. If you like the idea of open space exploration, a little bit of base building, a little bit of kind of exploring, and a bit of lore, and kind of just seeing what's out there with more or less a sandbox, I highly recommend No Man's Sky. I know there's still a little bit of a stigma remaining based on how it launched, but it's a completely different game than when it first came out. And I can say that because I bought it at launch. And because I didn't really follow its hype, I didn't have any expectations, and I enjoyed the base version. There was a lot there. I spent a lot of time with it. But in the years since it's been out, as they added more improvements, more additional content, and all sorts of stuff, the game is completely different from when it first launched. And you could jump in at any point and take advantage of all the things they've improved and all the things they've added, and easily that's 100+ hours of content if you're just beelining through like a lot of the critical things. If you like just exploring and setting your own objectives and whatnot, you can spend hundreds, thousands of hours potentially and not run out of things to do in that game, which is crazy. But we'll see. We'll see in the future. I only showed a little glimpse of a lot of the content when we looked at it on stream, and that was with doing some playthroughs offline to kind of get through some of the progression. So we'll see. That might be another one to revisit in the future. All right, we are getting into summer now, and the next music release that came out in, I think this was late summer, it was before the fall, was the chill release for this year. This was Shaken, Stirred, and Chilled, Sasak. And Sasak was kind of written in the same style of, mellow, ambient, chill kind of tracks, a lot like the previous year, Neon Night Lounge. And like that previous year's project, this one was a collaboration with a friend of the channel and frequent collaborator, Pwups. I specifically approached them earlier in the year and said, I want to do a sequel to Lounge using the same set of characters who you see on the album art that Pwups did here. And we didn't go quite as complex in doing scenes for each track because I believe this one had more. In fact, I can check. Lounge had, I want to say 12. Let me go look in my folder. Oh no, Lounge had 10. So Sack had 12. So a little bit bigger track list, but I wanted to focus more on just the songs instead of doing fleshed out scenes. So what we ended up doing was we agreed on kind of the composition on what to do with the characters, and then we used that for each track. And I did like these little track icons since for Sasak, one thing that was noteworthy and kind of fun is all of the tracks are named after drinks. And so I did some really simple icons that went with the track titles, and then we used the background art as sort of the centerpiece. And I think this one turned out pretty well. It definitely didn't have the volume issue that Lounge had. Well, I do like all the tracks on Lounge from the previous year. The volume was a little bit low on the recording, so it's a bit quieter compared to pretty much everything else I've done. I think that problem has not existed on any of the stuff I've released recently, but for Sasak, I specifically wanted to make sure all the stuff was balanced properly. Red Dragon says, this was the one where I made an OC dog character. Yeah, that's right. You kind of use the crew here as the model to create your own OC. That seems like that was ages ago. This is kind of another instance where I like the characters and I wish I could do more with them. But next time I do a chill release, I might do something different. I told Pwups because, to be honest, I like the way they design characters better than anything I design. I said, next time I do something like this, it's probably going to be new characters. So just a heads up if I commission you. But I haven't quite thought that far ahead yet into the release schedule for this year. There will be a chill album, but it might not be till maybe late summer again. The only real thing, mainstay releases that I try and stick to is a chill album for sure, and a Halloween album. Those are the two things that I do want to be somewhat consistent each year. Everything else, as far as the release style and complexity, is just up in the air. Again, we get to the very end of the stream. I'll talk about what I want to do for the releases this year, because I have things more or less planned out, at least through potentially summer. But we'll see. Moving on. Getting into the later part of the year, we have a new playthrough we started up, Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, from the Castlevania Dominus collection on Steam. And this was a game that I haven't played for a really long time. Last time I played it was when it was on the DS ages ago when it first came out. And getting all the handheld Metroidvania games in a collection is pretty good deal, I would say. I haven't played the other ones yet, but I did look at them a little. This one comes with Dawn of Sorrow, Order of Ecclesia, and a remade version of Haunted Castle in the original. The kind of arcade Castlevania, as it were. But we're still working through Portrait of Ruin. I think we're fairly close to the end. In the last session, we got through the Redux paintings, so I think we're going into like one of the final areas of the game. So that's maybe 1 or 2 sessions, and then we'll be done with Castlevania. It's a fun game. The tag mechanics gives it kind of a unique feel compared to just the single character ones. And then you have banter between these two characters, Jonathan the Whip and Charlotte the Bookworm. I don't know what I'm gonna do when we finish this one, because I do want to play Order of Ecclesia, but maybe not right away. I'm thinking of mixing in another, maybe older, kind of retro type game to play through once this one is done. I don't want to overlap too much and have too many ongoing playthroughs, otherwise I'll never finish anything. So it's this one and SMT5 are the ones that are immediate to complete. And then Elden Ring is ongoing. We know that one will be done at some point. But for the other stuff, Castlevania and SMT, and then when I finish one of those two, whichever I finish first, will get replaced by another game. Maybe that's when I'll do Factorio. We'll see. Unless I choose to kind of mix it in. Okay. Next up, we have another music release that I almost forgot to include, and then I was looking through my video list to kind of remember what came out when. And I wanted to include this one because I actually have several things to say about No Antidote. So this one came out beginning of August. I know it came out around Wozzy's birthday. That's how I can remember. And this track was a present because I wanted to do something for Wozzy's birthday, kind of similar to stuff I've done previous years. And the original version of this track kind of came from Poison Type. I had to remember the name because I haven't thought about that song in a while. But I had done a real simple sort of theme song for the Toxicure brand, I guess you can call it. And Wozzy's played it on her stream before, so all of her crew have heard that one. And then I created a different version of Poison Type, like a remix version using Suno to actually change the style of the song and change the vocals a little bit. But for this one, I wanted to do something completely from scratch and then actually do all of the verses myself rather than have like an AI say the stuff that I write. And so No Antidote was an exercise of creating and mapping the track using Suno, which took some experimenting and collaborating with a group that has access to more comprehensive Suno tools than I do. That's how we got the bass track for No Antidote, with the female vocals and the overall mapping of the track. And then what I did was I wrote all my verses and recorded all that, mixed it all together to create the final product that was released. And so this was the first actual vocal project I've ever done, which is why I wanted to include it on the list here. There's something that I think happened with the equalization when it was ported over to Spotify and Tidal. I didn't want to redo it, but I did notice that there's something a little bit weird with the way it balanced the audio, and I think I know why. I think it's because my distribution label, DistroKid, has the ability to kind of automate a mixing option. I think I'm not going to use that for stuff with vocals because it got a little bit weird. The quality of the song is still fine on streaming. It sounds fine, but I can notice a couple flaws in it. So next time I do one like that, I'm not gonna use the automated mixing. I'll make sure I mix it myself, and then just leave it as is. But No Antidote was fun to work on. People seem to be amused by this one. What Wazzy and I are working on now, it's just a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. Anyone who's been on her streams recently has heard the remix version that we put together that has her verses on it. So there's a remix of this bass track for No Antidote that has Wazzy rapping a set of bars at the end. We are working on a full-fledged remix of the song. I don't have any idea when it's going to be done because I'm still working on my part too. But essentially it's a remixed version of the track. So the vocals and the backing and everything else is going to be new. It's going to sound very similar, but basically everything is getting upgraded, and there's going to be more verses. And I know scheduling wise, and because she's still trying to get over the tinnitus and everything, we haven't talked about our timeline, but my plan is to at least finish all my verses within the next couple weeks, and then whenever she's ready to record her bits, we'll put everything together. But it's going to be a lot more complex than the bass version remix that you folks have all heard. And I think it's going to be really fun. I think it'll be a good opportunity to learn how to write tag team rhymes. But hopefully that will be something that'll be out later this year. It'll be the official remix. The one that you've been hearing is sort of the unofficial remix. So more to come with that. I think it's going to be fun. You just have to figure out planning and everything, and everybody's busy. But I'd like to do more of this style of song. So if I can get the hang of mixing and editing more, I would like to do some more rapped vocal lyric type stuff because it's fun to put together. So we'll see what kind of stuff comes up in the next year. But keep your eyes peeled for more stuff with No Antidote. Moving on into the fall, I think we are in, was it September? Closer to October. That's another thing that I forgot I even did, but when I was putting together the slideshow of images, I went back and said, I should definitely talk about that. I got a chance to play the beta or demo for Monster Hunter Wilds, upcoming title that'll be here in a little over a month. And we spent a stream, this was during the weekend beta when they had it open on Steam, and we looked at it. We spent the majority of our time talking about weapons and kind of just playing around with the move sets and everything. And then we went out, we hunted the Chatacabra, and then we got to town, and the game promptly crapped its pants. I would say the presentation and mechanics and everything for Wilds feels really good. We talked a lot about my baby, the Gunlance, and that felt great. All the other weapons and the tweaks felt great. Everything actually ran pretty well when I was just messing around with the different movesets in camp. And a little bit iffy here or there out and hunting the Chatacabra, but the game really just did not hold up once I got to town. And it's still in the archives of when I did that stream. If you ever want to see just how bad it looked on my computer, you can go check that out. It was mostly the frame rate dropping to almost nothing. One point when I loaded back in, everything went Nintendo 64 mode and didn't load all the textures, so we had low poly everybody for a brief second, and about a bunch of graphical glitches and everything else. I am pretty confident that the game will not run that way when it comes out based on what the devs have been communicating, and I did upgrade my processor recently. Might have to play around with settings a little bit, but I shouldn't have an issue. Fingers crossed. But besides that, the experience, my impressions of Wilds was very positive. I think it's going to be probably game of the year material, not just for me, but maybe for a lot of people who are looking forward to it. We're probably due for another trailer as it gets close to launch in February. Comes out at the end of February everywhere, on everything except Switch. And I will definitely be streaming this one. Unless it just will not run, I will be playing it on stream. If I have to go like we did for Elden Ring, if I have to go ping mode with just a static image, I will. But chances are I might just have to ratchet settings down a bit. Red Dragon, I know we were talking about it a little before, but I'm going to be doing some configuration troubleshooting for the settings in Elden Ring before our next session. And I'll get it to a state where it can run. I just don't know why it wasn't running well. Because I didn't really change anything from our last session. I upped things a bit, but it'll be fine. It's not going to affect our actual stream session. But running a 60 frame per second VTuber model seems to be the main factor, so I just need to play around with the settings a bit to not have it be a terrible resolution and keep the frame rate stable. And maybe I'll have to do something like that for Wilds. We'll see. Elden Ring is known for being not super optimized on PC. My friend that helped me put my processor in was telling me that's one reason why he never really picked it up. But either way, nothing's going to stop me from playing and streaming Wilds. We'll just have to see when the game launches how good the performance is, but I'm confident it'll be fine. Red Dragon says, I'll be updating my character so I can be more of help in combat. Oh, okay. Well, I feel like you were still doing the heavy lifting last time. You were doing more damage than I was because you went magic. But it might be a while, but I think we'll be able to get through the Radahn fight next time. I felt like I was getting the patterns down, but we really need more practice in the second phase once all of the beams of death start popping off everywhere. But yeah, still super looking forward to Wilds. Probably collaborating with a bunch of my peers who are probably going to be picking up around the same time. So that's probably one of my biggest things I'm looking forward to this year, gaming-wise. Moving on, we have probably my contender for Game of the Year in 2024, and considering it came in kind of at the end, a bit surprising. We started playing Satisfactory right after the 1.0 launch, I want to say in October. And this was a game I went into completely cold, not having played the early access version that was in development for many years. We jumped in to check it out on stream, and this is probably one of my favorite games in the factory automation sim genre, putting it in the same genre as Factorio, as DSP. The thing that I found most surprising about Satisfactory wasn't the actual factory optimization stuff, because I'd seen a lot of that. It was the combination of that with exploration I was not expecting. The amount of time I spent wandering around the map, exploring for valuables, getting into fights with angry alien wildlife, and just seeing different biomes, different areas, was not something I was expecting, because there isn't much of that in Factorio. I believe the map's procedural, but it doesn't have a lot of variety in the way everything generates. DSP has a star system that drops you in. I'm trying to remember how that one generates. I don't think it's 100% procedural. The planets themselves might be, but it's both of those two games, Factorio and DSP, don't really put a ton of emphasis on exploration. You can explore stuff to some extent, but really you're working on building out your bases and branching out into other areas to build more bases. with Satisfactory and its map being non-procedural, just a really, really big map, I was surprised about how much there was to see. It probably took me upwards of 60 hours to finally cover the entire map. And when we last looked at it, when I last played it, I'm pretty sure I've got everything, like every major area mapped, but I've not seen everything that's out there. There's probably a lot of hidden stuff, a lot of other valuable things, but I've seen more or less the entirety of the map, and it's a lot. Between that and all the other things there are to do in that game, and I haven't completed it yet, I was kind of surprised. I thought it'd be fun and I'd stick with it for a bit, but if I were to pull up my Steam list, I'm curious as to how many hours I have in Satisfactory, because I haven't been playing it for that long. It's only been out in 1.0 for a couple months. So in a couple months of it being out, I've played it for 154 hours, which is a lot in a short amount of time. I've had DSP for like a year and a half or more, and I'd expect that hour count to be like, I don't know, 300. Let me look since I'm in here. Oh no, I was wrong. My playtime in DSP is 444 hours. I think I did a lot more offline, and I streamed this one for much longer too. But I will probably plan on checking in with Satisfactory periodically here on stream. I'm still gonna be playing it a lot off stream, but this one again surprised me. Looking at the list, in my Steam library when I had it pulled up, I forgot to include a game on here because I didn't put an icon on my stream schedule, so I missed that I even streamed it. But it was definitely in my running for Game of the Year, so before we move on from this one, I'll just talk about it here, even though there won't be an image on screen. And I'd have to look and see when I streamed it. It was probably in the middle of the year, but it was Balatro. I'm sure everyone's heard everybody talking about it, but that one is probably the only other title I think would be in competition with Satisfactory for the best game I played in this last year. It didn't come out in 2024, although the mobile version did. We streamed a few sessions of quick looks with Balatro, but the vast amount of time I've spent in that game has been on my phone. So since the mobile version came out and I can take that game on the go, I have played it a ton, and I still have not unlocked everything, but another game that surprised me, despite all of my peers, like Matt, Wazzy, Bits, I don't know if Ramen plays Balatro. Everybody I know in like the affiliated crew has played or streamed that game at some point, and they all told me it was really good, and I just didn't get around to it until Community Mod and Addiction Spreader Sour Lad gifted me a copy of that game on Steam. That's when I started playing it, and we streamed it for a few sessions, and then I moved over to mobile once it came out there. But well-deserved Valent's praise. I know Balatro's a good game because people who are not normally into games like that game. Case in point, my younger brother and his fiance who live in California, I see them every couple months when I go visit. I introduced them to that game, and they got super into it. And they're still playing it, and we always talk about it every once in a while as far as who's got the most progress or who's gotten the furthest. And they're not really dedicated gamers, but they really liked the complexity and all sorts of stuff for a game like that. So yeah, should have been included on the list. I forgot that I streamed it this last year, but can't say enough high praise for Balatro. I hope more stuff comes out for it. I heard the guy who makes it is going to be doing a content update this year, so we might have to check it out again. Although it sucks because I don't have my progression on Steam. So if anything, I'll just be playing it offline. But I might be talking about it when that happens. All right. Moving on, we're getting close to the end of the year as far as games. Next up, we have October's release for music. This is the last release of 2024. Halloween Project, the Lightbane Temple. This one is also probably the second example of a rough narrative structure in one of my BGM releases. Not quite to the level of Songs of the Spiral, but probably close. And so every year for Halloween, I always put out an experimental and a darker sounding collection of tracks. And previous years, there's been kind of a rough theming or through line, depending. For previous year, Blood Moon Rites, we had kind of a rough storyline that Bits and I put together, but it wasn't super tied into the progression of tracks that much. For Lightbane Temple, I specifically wanted there to be progression from start to finish. And without recapping everything we talked about on the launch stream, I wanted to tell the story of a big war between two large factions. And this particular album, the art you're seeing on screen, was in collaboration with Rye Loaf, who did the album art for Blood Moon Rites as well. I hit them up earlier in the year and said, hey, working on another Halloween project. You want to take a stab at the album art again? And we went back and forth on concepts and ideas, and what Rye came up with is this painterly scene of the temple site where this big war is taking place. And I think it turned out really well. The art's one, I think has a very autumn-based palette, which is cool, kind of fall colors. But rather than have it focused on creatures or characters, I like that it's more of a scene, and that everything that goes on in the video for the release kind of adds to the quote-unquote story. And this is one of the projects where I did the art for the tracks themselves. I did character art for each of the factions. I think it was 8 and 8. How many tracks were there? 7 and 7. 14 tracks, 7 characters from each faction that I drew, and we did kind of like this portrait thing that pops in each track in the video, and then I showcased the actual full renders at the end. That was an interesting challenge, but I don't think I will do that again. It was a lot of work, and I think I'm happy with the results, but next time I'm commissioning someone who could probably do characters faster or better than me. But I wanted to try. It was a serious challenge to get 14 characters fully drawn by the end. But Lightbane Temple was a fun one to work on. The tracks were a bit outside my comfort zone as far as style too. We talked about how there's a lot of kind of, I call it churchy inspired elements to the compositions with some of the instruments, and fusing a lot of that with electronic techno type instruments and everything else, kind of put it all together was again an experiment that I hadn't tried before. But it was definitely an experiment that I am happy with at the end. Now for next year, I have no idea what I'm doing for Halloween next year. I need to start seriously thinking about what direction I want to go. I have an idea for something that was originally a scrapped Halloween concept for 2024. I might try and bring that idea back, but it comes down to how I'm going to collaborate for that one. So we'll see. I gotta think about that and actually start planning out tracks, since that does have a deadline. I always say the deadline's far away, and then I blink and I'm under the gun to get something done on time. We'll see. Next up, we have a couple, I think I have one or two sort of quick looks that we did. We returned to HoloCure after, I think, at least 2 years. I'm pretty sure I streamed this either the first or second year I started streaming here on Twitch. But HoloCure received a pretty big update last fall. Added a whole bunch of new game modes, a whole bunch of new characters and everything. And so we jumped back in for, I think, a couple sessions to check out all the new stuff, check out the new characters, and it was a lot of fun. This is another one of the games I wish was on mobile. I don't know if KU has the ability to port the engine he uses over to something like mobile, because just like with Vampire Survivors, a game in that style I will play infinitely more if I can take it around with me. But failing that, having the game on the PC, being able to play around with it was a lot of fun. There's a lot there. If you've never played HoloCure and have any interest in like a Vampire Survivors base style game with a whole bunch of other modes added in that I didn't even show on stream, I would check it out. It's free. You can get it on Steam right now. It doesn't cost anything, and it's actively being updated. I don't know when the next major content update's going to be, since the last one just came out, but maybe later this year. People are pinging my phone. Give me 1 sec. I think we are getting close to the end as far as titles. I think there's maybe a couple more left. Let's see what we're moving on to first. All right, next up, we have one of the longest running series here on the channel as far as streaming content. Maybe the longest running series. I'd have to go count up the amount of times I've streamed Rise Sunbreak. But considering I was playing that when I started, it's been almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years in the spring. So I want to say it's 4 years worth of streaming Rise. In fact, I know how I can tell. I keep all of my stream announcements by year in case I ever need to refer back to what I did in each respective year. So those announcements you see on the Discord and on Twitter, it says when I'm streaming. I keep all of those. So 2021 is when I started. Yeah, I think I wasn't using. Where's the icon? We did something Monster Hunter related earlier on in 2021. but I don't see it on the schedule again until later. So maybe I started doing it in 2022. I gotta remember when the PC version of Rise Sunbreak came out. Yeah, I see it pop up on the schedule in February of 22. Oh, I didn't even realize I had an older version of my stream announcement thing either. I've been using the one that you see now on the Discord and all that. I've been using that one for a couple years, but I had a different one when I first started. The layout was a little bit different, the color was different. Okay, so 22 is when we started streaming Rise Sunbreak. So it's been a couple years. It'll be 3 years in the spring. But like we've talked about on stream, the idea, and I'm still planning on doing this, I think next week we should be streaming Sunbreak again. I want to build weapon sets for all the weapons, and we are 2/3 of the way there. We're working on insect glaives last time, but I have a little more than a month. I don't know if I'm gonna get there, but we'll see. The plan is to keep streaming Rise Sunbreak off and on, and then we're gonna segue directly into Wilds next month when it comes out. So it'll be transitioning from one to the other, and Monster Hunter will continue to be probably the longest running thing I've streamed here in some capacity. It's not what I originally planned, but considering it's my favorite series, there will always be Monster Hunter on this channel. And I think there'll be a lot to talk about with Wilds, so I don't foresee it getting old anytime soon. But I want to say the majority of the time spent in Sunbreak over this last year and a half has been in the endgame grinding, doing the anomaly stuff, optimizing weapon sets, maxing out weapons, throwing augments on and everything. So not a lot's progressed, but it's been a lot of just grinding away at the end game. And if we were to check out statistics, I'm pretty sure my time in Rise Sunbreak has far eclipsed what I spent in World and Iceborne. But it's hard to tell because I don't have my save on Switch handy. I played base Rise on Switch before I jumped over to PC, and then Pups and I played base Rise on PC with Hunting Horn. That was also in like 2022. Oh, interesting. My time in Rise is tied with my time in DSP. Total play time for Rise across base game and then Sunbreak, 444 hours. I'm fairly certain that's a lot more than I ended up putting into World and Iceborne. Also taking into account maybe 100 something hours on the Switch for base version of Rise. I played it a lot before the expansion came out. So total, maybe around 500 or 600 total hours in Rise across 2 platforms. For World Iceborne, I want to say I spent around 200 hours in it. Not a lot. But I also played that one more than once too, because I played base World on PS4, then jumped over to PC. Played it again from the beginning, and then played Iceborne on PC. Fortunately, I don't have to do that anymore because it seems like the Monster Hunter titles are going to come out on everything going forward, with the exception of the Nintendo platforms. minimize this. But yeah, still more work to be done in Rise Sunbreak, and then we will move on to the new shiny thing, and then time to beat in Wilds and the eventual Wilds expansion when that comes out. We'll see. Okay. With that, we're at the top of the order. So that covers all of the major games streamed and music releases in 2024. Now, looking beyond into 2025, I talked a little bit about the potential schedule for music releases, but I'll kind of talk a little bit about the specific projects I'm working on in at least the short term, since we've discussed them a little bit, but I'll mention it again here and kind of explain the way I'm mapping things out. So the order is going to be something that I have to figure out, but the next immediate release is going to be the EP that I've talked about a couple times. I just need to do the cover art for it. One of our drawing streams we did recently was sketching out some ideas on what to do for the cover art. I just need to take all that and fully render it and put it together. And so the EP is called 329, and that will be out by the end of this month, most likely. Shouldn't take me more than a couple sessions to finish the art. The tracks are all done. Everything shouldn't take me long to edit into a video, since there's only going to be like 5 tracks in the EP. And so that'll be the first release of 25 before the end of this month. Moving beyond that into the spring is most likely going to be the remix album that I've talked about before. And that'll be an interesting experiment because I've never done something quite like that. It is going to be a remix of the 2023 Halloween album, Blood Moon Rites. And originally I was thinking about doing a subset of the tracks, and then I got ambitious and decided I'm going to do a remix for every single one. So it's going to be a complete track list remix of all the ones from Blood Moon Rites. And I think you folks are going to find it interesting because it's going to sound quite a bit different from what I've done in previous years. The way the remixing has been done puts a lot of interesting twists on the original tracks, and I was able to add vocals to them. So there's 1, 2, 3 of the total tracks have sung vocals now, and that's another thing I need to do. I need to work on recording some backup vocals for those, but that will be what comes after 329. I just don't know when. I hope to have everything done by spring. That way we can put it together. After that, the next thing that I want to finish, and it'll really depend on how long it takes me to do that, is the actual vocal album that I've been working on. All original tracks that I've written lyrics and stuff for. I don't have them all done. I haven't quite figured out how many tracks are going to be total, but that's most likely going to come after the remix album. I just don't know when. It might actually be the summer release, at which point I might have to do summer release, Halloween release, and then the chill release maybe at the very end of the year and move it around. But the remix album and the vocal album are the two big lifts for this year. Two brand new project types I haven't done before. Require a lot more editing and planning, and then I got to figure out if I want to do any commission work for any other art assets and whatnot. So a lot of stuff up in the air for that, but if it all comes together. I think you folks will find it really interesting. It'll be, again, a departure from what we've done up till now. So 2025 on the music side is going to be a bit more ambitious. We'll see how everything shapes up, but I'm pretty confident that it'll at least be interesting, and then give a good jump off point for future projects. As far as other stream content goes, we talked about some of the games I'm looking at on the horizon. Obviously, Wilds is the big one, but depending on how long it takes us to finish some of our other ongoing things like the SMT playthrough and Castlevania, I'll see what I want to mix in. I think I would rather do a quick look series on different games than just add in a long play that's going to take 6 months. I haven't quite decided yet. I kind of feel like people would get bored. They get bored if they're watching me play the same game for a really long time just because I don't beat stuff on a rapid pace. But we'll see. We talked about Factorio. That's on the list for this year. Maybe revisiting some of the other games if they get updates or content. We'll see. Still plenty of things that I've got in my Steam library, including some stuff I was gifted over the holidays that could also be really cool to check out. And so I'll be doing a little bit of digging through my library and seeing what I feel like is going to be interesting to talk about and show off on stream. And then maybe we work those in as quick looks as well. I do want to get back to fighting games at some point. I'm pretty far removed from the recent updates from Street Fighter, and I need to get back into that and get better. That's one thing we didn't do a ton of this year. I want to say we had to have streamed Street Fighter at least once or twice. I forgot to check. I didn't see it on my announcement chart, so maybe we didn't do Street Fighter this year. Maybe it was the end of last year. But I'm assuming there'll be another DLC season coming up soon. So I'll have to get back to that one eventually. To do more with Strive. Definitely, especially now I have the updated hardware. I expect there to be more upcoming things in Guilty Gear as well. Those are the two fighting games I'm trying to keep somewhat on my radar because there's so many. There's also Idle Showdown, which probably is going to be getting an update at some point. I think we looked at that one maybe in 23. That's the Hololive fighting game. So I'll have to take a look at the release radar and see how things are looking for fighting games, but I feel like we kind of didn't do a ton of fighting games in 24. I'd like to get back to that a bit in the coming year. If we got a new Soul Calibur game, I'd be all over that. Honestly, I don't know if we'll ever get another Soul Calibur game again. Thinking ahead into the future, another thing I guess I can talk about a little. We're still figuring out the planning, so there's not a lot to really disclose. But there will be as far as I know, maybe I shouldn't jinx anything, but it's looking like there's going to be an actual Extra Life event this year in 25. Matt decided to break up the way the content and streaming he was going to do for the Extra Life charity in 2024. But in 2025, I think it's going to be an on-site event again. Not a lot's come out yet, so I don't want to just speak for Wazi and her team. But if there's an actual event, regardless, I will be participating in that again. And that does lead me into something that I talked about last year, and kind of my goal has evolved a little bit. So, in case people were wondering what happened, I can explain it here. Another thing I want to do this year is do a charity music event for Extra Life. Not part of the actual event they do when everyone is streaming in one spot. But my original plan was to do kind of like an extended DJ set with my loop station and basically run through tracks that I've put on there that hadn't been released and perform them live. Actually loop everything and perform them live. I wouldn't be recording them live. It'd all be done before, so all I have to do is just play the tracks and, put the effects on. But the idea was to do that for like an extended amount of time as just a way to raise money for the Extra Life charity. And since a bunch of projects that I've been working on have been ongoing, I've sort of evolved what I want to do a little bit. I think the plan right now, and I gotta talk to Matt about this because he might be wondering what I ended up doing. Instead of it being just a DJ set where we're doing like loop station tracks, I want to make it a combination DJ set plus actual performed concert. And that directly coincides with the work I'm doing on that vocal project. If I can have that vocal project done by the spring, then I should be able to do that concert by the summer. Because the plan would be, rather than just me performing tracks with, my loop station, having them be instrumental stuff like you folks have heard on the releases, the idea is I would actually be performing the vocal tracks. And I gotta think of the logistics a little, but what I'd be doing is after the release of the project for kind of like the actual event that I'm doing, I'd be singing the songs live, kind of like a karaoke thing, which I haven't done in a couple years. But I think that would be fun, but it's a much bigger lift and might require me getting some assets for like a new layout and everything. So I'd like it to be a bit of a production to kind of help sell the event and whatnot. And so rather than do something a little bit smaller like I originally planned, I want to go a little bit bigger. And it's going to require more time as I get stuff done. So that's why that never happened in 24. I thought I could put something together by the end of the year, and then this vocal project became, instead of a one-off thing, it became like a full album. So that's something I'm trying to figure out for later this year, and I'll probably talk about it more once I have an idea of what's actually going to happen. Here, I'll cycle this over to the first image where we started too. So I think between the streaming based content that I want to look at, the music projects that are on the horizon, and then the other kind of event stuff, I guess there's also some rooms for more collab things too. I would like to kind of work with some of my peers more on the actual streaming side. Kind of focused on a lot of the solo stuff for the most part in 2024, aside from like the Elden Ring collab with Red Dragon. But I wouldn't mind doing some more features with some of my peers, whether it's on the art side or the gaming side, just to kind of mix things up. I know a lot of us share the same community, so people will probably be hanging out one way or another. But we'll see. I know everybody's busy. But I think that is the majority of the stuff I wanted to go through for the annual wrap-up. I'm trying to think if there's anything else planning-wise, content-wise, or anything else that I wanted to specifically talk about. Overall, like I said, 2024 was a good year in streaming and content. I think we did a lot of fun stuff and looked at a lot of things. And because I don't think I say it enough, for anyone who's watching this now or who watches this in the archives. I really do appreciate our community that we've built, the Space Bees. You folks that come and hang out and give me advice or just vibe as we check out stuff. I really do appreciate you folks are the reason why I get to do this and have people to interact with. So thank you. Thank you for continuing to support what I do and just hang out. Also, shout out to the mod team. I guess it's worth noting that the mod team grew this year for here on Twitch. In addition to Sourlad and Iconic, who mod, Red Dragon and Lava joined the team to help keep track of things in chat and mod. So shout outs to everybody who pops in to help and volunteer time. Red Dragon says, getting new emojis this year. Oh yeah, that is something I wanted to look into. I will look at emotes. Yeah, that's on my list too. Maybe I will talk to a couple of my peers and see if they want to do some commissions for new emotes. We've had the ones in the list now for a few years, so we could swap out some of the ones for some up-to-date expressions and whatnot. It's a good idea. Thanks for reminding me, Red Dragon. But yeah, overall, the kind of environment and general community here has been very chill, which is what I wanted. I originally wanted to basically set up all this stuff as a place for me to be able to make things and just release them out into the world, and if people see it and like it, great. If no one sees it, then that's fine too. And it just so happened to work out that people started following me along the way. Going into the 4th year of doing VTubing, that's kind of old for a lot of people in our particular sector. The VTube scene, just from what I've looked at online and reading places like Twitter and whatnot, the VTube scene is still growing. It's not going away. From both the corporate side and a lot of the big organizations to the indie side, like me, who are just people out there doing their thing. It seems like there's still a lot growing within the community and a lot of people getting into it, which is exciting. We talked about assets like Red Dragon was mentioning. I've toyed with the idea of maybe getting a new model. I don't know. That's not super high on my priority list, but that's something I would like to consider. It's just an investment, so we'll see. Red Dragon says 4 years, you're a baby streamer. 4 years maybe in the big scheme of things, but for the streaming world and VTubing, some people don't last more than a year or two. It just depends on what their goals were. One thing I know I've talked to a couple of my fellow VTubers and other regular streamers about, some people start streaming regardless of how, whether it's a VTuber or an IRL or just an avatar. Some people think that they're going to hit it big and be the next like super massive streamer whenever they start. And the reality is that doesn't happen for most people. I know, Red Dragon, you and I have talked about it a little bit since you've been getting into streaming as well, but it's a grind, for one. That's not news to anybody. We all know it's a grind. But the another big aspect of just streaming and content creation in general is just luck. I talked a little bit, and I won't give you folks the whole backstory because I've said it before, but I feel like I got really lucky when I started doing VTubing stuff on YouTube, just getting into content creation and starting out. I got really lucky in that I crossed paths with Wazi and got a chance to join her community, and majority of you folks in the beginning that came over here and started hanging out on my streams came from her. And so it comes down to kind of networking and just being in the right place at the right time. And I understand not everybody gets lucky, but like Red Dragon saying, streaming and YouTubing is a huge grind. If you're really passionate about creating content, you just got to keep doing it and put yourself out there as much as you can, but just keep at it. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed success. Sometimes you'll get lucky, sometimes you won't, but you just got to keep doing it if you're passionate about it. Hey, Lava's here. Oh, it's Thursday. Is it Judo Day? We're just talking about you, Lava. Welcome to the stream, and Happy New Year. Hope you're doing all right. I was giving the mod team a shout out, so that's why I mentioned you earlier. We've been talking about just the year's worth of content over the last 12 months in 2024. And it's been busy, but overall, I think what I was telling the chat earlier is that it's been a good year. Been busy, but there's still a lot I want to do. Lava says, no, I'm most certainly not doing all right for server reasons. Ah, that sucks, man. Well, hopefully things improve. I know it's easy to say, but things will always get better. It might not seem like it, but they will. Like, I'll be real with you guys for a sec. In content and streaming, whatever, 2024 was great. In non-content related stuff, I had my ups and downs like everyone else. This last year has been very difficult due to work. I think 2024 was probably the most times I had to cancel or move a stream purely due to work. I won't bore you all with the details, and it's not meant to minimize what Lava's talking about because everybody goes through stuff, but this has not been an easy year at my job. But it's just a job, and it pays my bills and allows me to do this, which I care much more about than the job itself. Lava says, looking back, 2024 was awful to me, but enough about me. How are you? Well, yeah, that's why I wanted to say that. Like, in content and streaming, 2024 was a good year, but outside of that, it was challenging in a lot of ways, just like it is for everybody. But the most important thing, and this applies to anything, whether it's content, whether it's just life in general, it is a grind, and you gotta keep going and keep reminding yourself of reasons to keep going. As difficult as things can get, you can always find ways to get through it, or find people to help you get through it. That's another thing that's a little bit more difficult for me to advise on, because I'm not a shrink, I'm not a therapist, but don't be afraid to reach out to people to help you. You don't have to go through stuff by yourself. And that's tough. I understand. But either way, 2025 and on, I think 2025 is going to be an interesting year for a lot of reasons, no matter where you live. But as far as what we're going to be doing here on the channel and what we're planning on doing, I am confident it's going to be an exciting and interesting year in content. All right. I knew I was going to have less specific items to go over because in the slideshow that we've been running through, I know Lobby just popped in here, but all the things we went through, there was less things this year than last year. I think primarily because I covered more games last year just in quantity. And this year we had more long plays that were going over, longer stretch of time, including stuff that was holdovers from 2023 into 2024. But I wasn't sure how long it was going to take me to cover everything. But seeing as how we're at the hour 40-minute roughly mark, I could call the stream here, or we could do something else for a little bit of time before we wrap up. Lava says my Wi-Fi is awful due to weather. I keep getting cut out. Oh, well, that sucks. Well, if you, I won't just go over everything that I was just talking about, but the archive will be up once the stream is done. Either way, if you want to hear what I said earlier, in case you didn't catch it. Basically, I tried to give some words of encouragement. You folks can tell me if I was successful, but yeah, it'll be in the archives if you want to check them out later. And also if you want to see what we talked about in the earlier part of the year. But let me see. We could... Oh. No, I think I'll do that on an actual dedicated stream. Another thing I want to do, I think I'm going to stream later this year. Haven't decided yet, Path of Exile 2. I've been talking about it a lot, but I've not streamed it yet. We'll see. I haven't had a chance to play that the last week or so because I've been so busy, but that game has been very, very fun, and I do have a lot I can talk about with that, even though I don't really know what I'm doing still. Talking about future stuff and future upcoming content. Question mark behind Path of Exile 2. I know Red Dragon did check it out and was playing it a bit. The game is fun. Alright, let me look at my list. I'm trying to think of something that we could play for a bit that won't require a ton of ramp up. Give me a second to look at my list. There is one game that I actually gifted this to a friend of mine. I don't have it installed here, but it's fairly small. But as a real quick look, I don't think I have enough time to explain the game. Ooh, let's see, we got a drop a beat redeem from Red Dragon. Okay, we can definitely do that. Lava asks, hey Raku, how good are you with emulation in JRPGs? Kind of depends on what you're talking about. I have some emulator stuff on this machine. I don't have access to a lot of ROMs because I don't have a real vast collection. I've streamed some stuff in the past that I use an emulator for. So I have PS2 emulator and I have BizHawk, which plays most of the older Nintendo system stuff. I've got a decent amount of SNES and NES ROMs, but that's about it. If you're trying to play a specific RPG, like JRPG from back in the day, I might be able to help you. Depends what you want, so let me know kind of what you're looking for and I can see if I can help you. Or Dragon says redeems did pop up on chat. Yeah, because chat's no longer broken. So not only the messages, but the redeems come up. So I did see the stretch and boatload of hydrates come in. So let me get my smoothie and then we'll do the beat. Lava says you have a PS2 emulator. Could use some help with in the future, or at least PSX. I don't have PSX emulator. The one I have, I believe, will only do PS2 stuff, but if you need it, I can probably hook you up. Send me a chat. on Discord on what you're specifically looking for. Actually, I can tell you which one it is. It's PSX, I believe. I haven't used it since we did God Hand, but I still have it. Give me a second to look it up. Then we'll do the beat. PCX2. That's what I'm using. I only have a couple ROMs for that, or yeah, ROMs. We did Armored Core 3 and God Hand using that. And I think, did we do R-Type Final? I think we looked at R-Type Final 2 once, not the first one. Where did I even download this from? I could probably just link you to the actual... just take the whole folder and link it to you so you can download the whole thing. But yeah, either way, send me a message on Discord of what you're looking for. I'll try and help you. That one worked pretty well, and I'm not really that smart when it comes to emulators. All right, let me pause the BGM. Get my headphones. And let us come up with a beat. Back, we do this, and we might actually just be able to wrap up in around 2 hours. We'll see. I'll think about how much time we've got left, because I got to go take care of dinner soon. But in the meantime, first beat of the new year. Let's make it a good one. All right, let me put the BGM back on. Okay, that's still set up. All right, let me see. Like I said, I gotta go start cooking dinner soon. First, let me see who's online. I think what we'll do, again, because I can't be working on stuff too late, let's go ahead and call the stream here. Let's see. Who is online? Let's go raid Mycelia. She is back at the FF14 grind again. Okay. Let's go over there and see how things are going. In the meantime, what we'll do is we'll go to outro. And we will call the 2024 retrospective there. Overall, a good look back at what we did. More things to come in 2025, I'm sure. Once again, thanks to everyone who's come along for the ride and continues to hang out here. Appreciate you folks. We will be back on Sunday for sure doing SMT5 Vengeance. We're picking up there. My plans kind of shifted around this weekend. I might have time to stream Saturday. We'll see. It might be kind of a pop-up stream if I decide to do it. If not, we'll be back Sunday to do some SMT. So, in the meantime, hope everyone has a good rest of your evening or morning. I will catch you in the next one. And now let's go see how the FF14 grind's going. Catch you folks later.